began like any other summer day in Edmonton. Warm air, scattered clouds, a hint of prairie wind. But by afternoon, the sky turned an unnatural shade of green, and then the storm struck. A tornado, massive, violent, unforgiving, slammed into Canada's sixth largest city. With winds estimated at over 400 kilometers per hour, it tore through homes, vehicles, factories, and lives. By the time it lifted, 27 people were dead, over 300 were injured, and a nation was forever changed. Tonight, we go back to July 31st, 1987, the day Albertans remember as Black Friday. This is the Midnight Files, when nature strikes. Edmonton, Alberta, capital city of the province, a population nearing 600,000 in the 80s. A city of hardworking people, tradesmen, factory workers, civil servants, oil field laborers, and families. July 1987 had been unusually warm. The city had already seen several heat waves and storm activity that had been brewing for weeks. But like so many cities in Tornado Alley's northern edge, Edmonton felt immune to true disaster. It was the Friday before the long holiday weekend. Children were outside playing. Workers were finished their shifts early. Parks were packed. Many people were planning to leave the city. But above them, far above in the turbulent skies, something dangerous was forming. To understand what made the 1987 tornado so devastating, we need to talk about the meteorological setup. A strong upper-level low was pushing across the Rockies, moving eastward. A trough of low pressure sat right over Alberta. The heat and humidity near the surface combined with the cooler air aloft, a classic recipe for instability. Moisture from the Gulf of Mexico had drifted unusually far north. Meteorologists at Environment Canada saw the warning signs. Around midday, radar showed an intensifying storm cell forming southeast of Edmonton. This wasn't your average thunderstorm. It had rotation. It had structure. It was a supercell, a monster storm with a rotating updraft known as a mesocyclone. At 2:55 p.m., Environment Canada issued a tornado warning. Just 5 minutes later, at 3 p.m., the first funnel cloud was spotted near Beaumont, and by 3:04 p.m., the tornado was on the ground. It began south of Edmonton near the Mill Woods area and moved north-northeast. It gained strength with intensifying speed. The tornado quickly escalated to an F4 on the Fujita scale, just one step below the maximum F5. It was nearly 1 kilometer wide at its peak and stayed on the ground for nearly 1 hour, carving a 40-kilometer path of destruction. Residents first reported seeing a massive dark funnel touching the earth, wrapped in debris and surrounded by swirling dust and lightning. Some described it as a wall of black, headed straight for them. The storm slammed into the Strathcona Industrial Park, obliterating warehouses and flipping 18-wheelers. Steel beams were bent like twigs. Walls were ripped from concrete foundations. A train was derailed. Hazmat storage tanks exploded, sending toxic smoke into the air. Then came Evergreen Mobile Home Park. The Evergreen community was a peaceful mobile home park in northeast Edmonton. Families, retirees, and blue-collar workers called it home. But Evergreen lay directly in the tornado's path. At 3:30 p.m., the tornado reached the park, and within seconds, it was gone. Nearly half of the 27 fatalities occurred in Evergreen. Mobile homes, lightweight and vulnerable, were shredded into splinters. Vehicles were thrown hundreds of meters. Survivors reported being sucked out of their windows, slammed into the ground, or thrown across the street. One woman was found 150 meters from her home. A father and son clung to the steel frame of their trailer as a tornado ripped through the walls, around them. The child survived, the father didn't. Emergency crews arrived to a scene of total devastation, and it wasn't over. After Evergreen, the tornado continued northeast, ripping through oil refineries and industrial zones. Entire factory walls were peeled off like paper. Gas lines ignited. Emergency responders battled not just collapse and trauma, but fire and toxic chemicals. By the time it dissipated near Sherwood Park just before 4 p.m., the tornado had killed 27, injured over 300, and left 1,700 people homeless. The city's infrastructure was crippled. Roads were impassable. Phone lines were down. Power outages spread for kilometers. Hospitals were overwhelmed. And through it all, ordinary Edmontonians became heroes. Neighbors dug through debris with their bare hands. Firefighters carried survivors through rising floodwaters. Volunteers lined up to donate blood, food, and shelter. There were stories of incredible survival and heartbreaking loss. Larry Jaworski, a worker at a tank cleaning company, was on shift when the tornado hit. His entire facility collapsed around him. He survived, but 5 co-workers did not. Angela Reimer, a 9-year-old girl, was thrown from her home at Evergreen. She was found alive beneath a pile of rubble, clutching a doll and calling for her mother, who never made it out alive. A news camera captured the moment when a nurse ran toward the wreckage of a daycare, looking for missing children. Thankfully, the kids had been evacuated minutes before the storm struck. It was moments like these, panic, pain, and perseverance, that shaped the story of Black Friday. In the days that followed, Edmonton streets were quiet, except for the sound of chainsaws, sirens, and helicopters. The damage totaled over 330 million Canadian dollars, which would exceed 700 million Canadian dollars today when adjusted for inflation. The Alberta government declared a state of emergency. Aid poured in. So did the questions. Could this have been prevented? The tornado exposed critical gaps in Canada's warning systems. Many residents either didn't hear the warnings or just ignored them. Sirens were virtually non-existent in most neighborhoods. This tragedy led to major reforms: improved radar systems, enhanced public alert messaging, new emergency protocols across Alberta and Canada. And for the people of Edmonton, the rebuilding began. Today, a memorial stands at the site of Evergreen Mobile Home Park, honoring the lives of those lost on July 31st, 1987. The names are etched into stone, a permanent reminder of nature's wrath. But more importantly, a memory of that day lives in the stories told by survivors, passed down through generations. It's become part of Edmonton's identity. Canada rarely sees tornadoes this violent, but Black Friday proved that even the most unlikely places can be vulnerable, and every storm leaves behind a story. The 1987 Edmonton Tornado remains one of Canada's darkest weathered disasters, but it also stands as a testament to a resilience of a community that came together in its darkest hour. If this episode moved you, please consider sharing it with someone you know, and don't forget to rate, follow, and check out our other in-depth episodes, including the Joplin Tornado, Hurricane Andrew, and the Tri-State Tornado of 1925. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Midnight Files When Nature Strikes. I'm your host, Brian, and until next time, please be on the lookout for storms closest to you. Be safe, and good night.